Hi, my name is Grace and welcome to Homestead on the Brook. At this point, we have been on our vacant 12-acre block for 7 months now. We have been accessing our camp, which is maybe like 2/3 of the way into the property, from the front gate, which is about 100 meters that way, through this driveway here. It was sold to us by a developer who wasn't regularly accessing the property, but we could see track ties, so this was our understanding of how the property was being accessed. Now, it didn't look like this when we first came here. It was very beautiful and luscious and green when we first saw the property back in March 2024. It was actually Good Friday. We fell in love with it and it was everything. So we went ahead and we put an offer on the property, and after the seller accepted the offer, naturally wanted to come back out and like dream and visualize, and we came back out in early April and it had just been raining. We hadn't seen water going through the property before. Now, when we searched up the property on the flood searches, there was nothing for any of the major floods in the past couple of decades. That was like the green light for us that this is not property that we have trouble with flooding or water inundation. And so when we saw the brook trickling, we're like, that's cute, it'll be really nice, we'll, put a little footbridge over it or something. It eventually dried up through winter and the dry months, and we had full access of the driveway, no problems whatsoever. The first time the dam overflowed wasn't until spring. We started getting some regular rain and the dam started overflowing and running into the smaller dam just in front of me. It didn't stop, and it's been flowing since I think October through until late January. And in that time, we've been trying to figure out how to navigate the driveway. This property is predominantly clay, so when it gets wet, it's inaccessible with just like a normal vehicle. We just have an all-wheel drive. We bought it thinking it was a four-wheel drive, like rookie era, but we thought it would be fine. It wasn't fine. We got bogged multiple times. We had to push the car out with a tractor. We had to tow it out with a four-wheel drive we ended up buying for the property because our SUV wasn't cutting it. We've had our SUV stuck in the brook overnight because we couldn't get it out with a tractor, and it's been one headache after another. The entryway is so steep that it was just slipping, and so we learned our lesson. We started parking our car on the street and ferrying a family of 6 backwards and forwards on our John Deere tractor. That was fun. The kids loved it. They just thought it was the best. They would sit in the bucket or sit on the back slasher, obviously off. Not advised, but we didn't really have any other way to transport our family from our camp to the car to the street. You could walk with gumboots, but when we were really in the thick of summer and we were getting storms back to back day after day, or getting like 60 mils in an hour, it would come up above the knees, like into my gumboots, and I had like knee-high gumboots. And there was no way that my little 2-year-old was going to get through, or my 3-year-old. Jake ferried me across on his back just in his boxes one time because it was so deep that we couldn't even get the tractor through. We had a work function that we had to get to, so he piggybacked me across, which was kind of cute. But the novelty doesn't last very long with those kinds of things, and we got very sick of it very quickly. Just so much friction coming home from church in the evening, and all the babies are asleep in the car, transporting them at 9 o'clock at night on a tiny little tractor 200 meters from the road. Once we saw the brook running, we had some conversations with our co-owners, which is my sister and brother-in-law, and we had a brief discussion about having to facilitate the drainage from the top dam. Because what happens when it rains, we're kind of like in a valley where we are, and all of the rain, all of the stormwater from like literally thousands of acres over both sides of us run down right into our property. And it fills up our dam, so the brook runs all the way up our street and fills up the dams, pours over the road into the neighbour's dam, and that flows through, fills up our massive dam that's like almost an acre, it's so big, and pours over and flows through into this dam, which then goes into the next property and the property over. So it's not necessarily having torrential rain. We could have, you know, a couple of mils here, maybe say 10 mils here, which is fine. But during storm season, when you get those like supercells and it just like dumps a bunch of rain, it could happen a couple kilometers over the road. Even though we've only got 5 or 10 mils here, it all fills into our property and floods our driveway. Which we didn't know that. We just thought it's cute, it overflows a little bit, we'll fix it up, it's all good. A few days after we started camping, a Toyota Hilux ute just drives straight up the driveway, straight into our camp like he owns the place. And out pops this like this cute old, must be pushing 90, and he gets out and he introduces us, and he's the neighbor. He actually was the former owner of this property before he sold it to the developer who subdivided it. And he was so nice to us, and he showed us a bunch of photos that he had taken when the brook had flooded. And he said, you know, I just wanted to show you these pictures, making sure that you're not putting your house somewhere where it's going to flood. And he was very knowledgeable, and we're very grateful that he took the time out to come and meet us and talk to us about that. So fortunately, he was like, yep, that's a good spot to put your house. It's never flooded up there. The soil's quite good up there, so I'd be surprised if you ran into any problems. But he's like, yep, definitely don't put it down here. And he showed us where it had flooded. He said it will flood when there's lots of rain, you know, on those once a decade torrential rain seasons, but it clears after a day or two. And we're like, cool, that's no problem, we'll just sit tight for a day or two. The problem was driving over the wet clay, and we created these huge craters in the driveway that was pooling with water. They ended up being like basically like ponds, and they would just sit full of water because it had nowhere to go. There's zero drainage. It was just raw land. Obviously, the problem with the wet season is it constantly rains, so it was constantly filling up with water and never actually got to dry. So you can see how deep the cracks are in these dips where we've been driving the tractor over and over again in these big puddles of water. Like this, it was full of water for 5 months. And then when we got heaps of rain, it would start flowing back, and the brook would start running again. There were breaks of the brook running on and off over the past 5 months, but it was constantly wet over the past 5 months. So I guess the inconvenience and the friction of having an unusable driveway was one thing, but the main issue with the driveway was that we couldn't build. We couldn't start our builds. We got building approval back in November, and we haven't been able to start anything. We haven't been able to get our septic installed. We haven't been able to dig any footing holes, get a concrete truck in, because the driveway was inaccessible. I guess the advantage of seeing the driveway in the state that it was for the period, you know, for the length of time that it was underwater, we got a really good idea of where the water goes, how it flows, how high it gets, how long it takes to clear up, where it pools. And we were able to make some really good informed decisions about how to most effectively facilitate the draining of the driveway so that the driveway would stay usable even through the torrential rain. We're well aware that when there is torrential rain, even once we have the driveway all installed, it will still go underwater, not by a lot, but we will be able to get a car over even when it's underwater. We decided to look into some drainage solutions, and Jake did a bunch of research. What we're mainly trying to accomplish with all of this drainage is to just facilitate the water from the big dam down to the little dam without it decommissioning the driveway, which was due to the clay pooling up with water. So after many months of planning, we have finally locked in a driveway renovation date, which is tomorrow, which is very exciting. It's been a long time coming. So that's the backstory. And now I'll hand over to Jake, who will run you through some driveway reno logistics.
This is the front portion of our property, and this is our boundary line. Now we're going to build our house over here next to the dam. The only way to get to our house from the road is through this section here that floods. Let's talk about what we're going to do to rectify this issue the best we can with the resources that we have available. When it floods, the water comes out of this dam, sort of fills this low area first, and then once it gets really bad, that's when it starts to fill out this whole area, and this whole area will get water. We're trying to follow that low-lying ground. We are planning to put a French drain trench through here and then into this outlet into the dam. A little bit further up, we're going to have our culvert. The culvert's going to help drain the surface water. We're planning to put a 600mm culvert 5 meters long where the water naturally wants to flow on the surface of the driveway. So the French drain will help with drainage of water that just is sitting on top of the surface and doesn't have anywhere to go because there's some low parts in the driveway, and the culvert will help sort of channel that main body of water that stays on the surface. Once the culvert and French drain are in, we're going to make a 70 by 3 meter road. It'll go over the culvert and over the French drain. We're trying to keep to the highest part of our driveway so that if it does flood, that'll be the first thing that drains off, in theory. That's roughly where the driveway will go. So the hope is, as the water comes out of here, filling up this area where the start of the French drain is, we're hoping a lot of that water will drain down the French drain and out under the road and into this into the lower dam here. And if there's more water that's sitting over the surface, we're hoping that it'll flow out the culvert into this inlet. We're hoping it'll flow through the culvert first and hopefully help keep the driveway drier for longer. That's the plan. The excavator is arriving tomorrow and we'll start upgrading this driveway. So stay tuned because there'll be a video coming very shortly of the actual work on the driveway. Also, don't forget to subscribe for all the awesome content that's to come. Catch you in the next one.